Okay, now we can have the question and answer session. I think the speakers have covered a lot and have raised many important issues and points. And any questions? You could ask your questions by raising your hand, or you could type your question into the chat, in which case I will read. Little Rust, okay. Can we unmute him, please?
Yeah, I had a question towards the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So, how exactly has been the reaction of the committee who is responsible to say, okay, we can declare this as a UNESCO World Heritage Site? So I have seen that there have been a lot of protests around the world, but was there a official answer from UNESCO why Hasankeyf wasn't declared as a UNESCO World Heritage Site?
Thank you. And this is to Ercan, I believe.
Yeah, I can reply.
Yeah.
The UNESCO has a World Heritage Committee which prepares the list of World Heritage Sites and take care of it. And only governments, national governments can apply. That's the issue, only states, not municipalities, not civil society. These are the rules. So the Turkish government has never done it. And whenever we or others send letters to UNESCO and requested to take care of Hasankeyf, they said they only, if they have replied, said, okay, the Turkish government has not applied that Hasankeyf will be inscribed on the list of the World Heritage List. Or it's not even on the tentative list. It's a first step to do it. So we cannot deal with it just. That's all. They never expressed any concern on destruction of Hasankeyf. They never did it. They never did a statement. And the role of UNESCO on the Turkish government is in no way positive. The case of Sur and Hefsel, the area in Diyarbakir, Ahmet, which is on the list, shows it. Turkey has destroyed parts on purpose, and the UNESCO never did even a one-time statement where they criticized it. Now they did two statements for the Hagia Sophia, they did statements for Aleppo and Palmyra. It's good, but they never did one for them. So it's also an issue with which government they are dealing. And once, yes, Steve said that Hasankeyf fulfills the criteria of UNESCO. Yes, it fulfills. 10 years ago, there was independent research by experts, and they say that Hasankeyf has the potential to fulfill 9 of 10 UNESCO criteria. There's only the number of criteria fulfilled by one site is five criteria, not more, and Hasankeyf has the potential for 9. So that the UNESCO never did even a one statement, nothing shows that it's not interested or it doesn't want any political conflict with any state. In 2012, we together, groups, the Initiative to Keep Hasankeyf and 2 groups from Iraq, we did a petition to UNESCO. 40,000 images we have collected, and we wanted to meet UNESCO in Paris to hand over the signatures, but they refused to meet us. Unfortunately, this is the position of UNESCO.
Thank you. I've got a question for Cemal, and it in a way kind of builds on your presentation, excellent presentation. The issue of the way Turkey views Kurds is central to how it tries to kind of design the environment, right? And that's a very, given that Turkey is very antagonistic towards anything Kurdish, can we expect more kind of similar things that's happening to Hasankeyf, as that has happened to Hasankeyf, to happen elsewhere, or how do you see it developing? You need to unmute yourself first, please.
Yeah, you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
The thing is, the main security issue for the Turkey is always been Kurd and Kurdistan. Anything related to Kurdish reality, obviously, and Turkey wants to demolish it. And if something represent Kurds such as Hasankeyf, Turkey will take it very seriously. I mean, a city of Hasankeyf, if it was somewhere else, perhaps it could have been the world's most attractive touristic and cultural destination, I guess. But when perhaps if the Hasankeyf was in Izmir, in west of Turkey, or somewhere else, things could have been differently. But it's because it's got some relation with the Kurds and history, and Kurds see as an important heritage for themselves, and therefore, in the eyes of the Turkish state, has to be demolished. So simple as that. To your question, yes, anything related to Kurdish reality, it should be diminished or destroyed, because when you look at the creation of the Turkish state, very beginning, this is very obvious: the assimilation, cultural assimilation, and every single thing belonging to the Kurds is destroyed. So yes, I believe anything related to the Kurdish issue. And one thing I think I tried to explain, obviously we had a very short time to explain. I had to kind of summarize what I about it in my presentation. General literature only talks about water issue between Turkey and Iraq and Syria. To me, there's no water issue between them. There's Kurdish. So Turkey tried to kind of control any Kurdish movement or any autonomous of Kurds in one of these neighboring states. Tried to control via water, basically. So water is just one aspect, but it is other things. So yeah, I do believe there will be other things as well if related to Kurdish heritage and Kurdish reality.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, we have a question from our audiences in the chat. I think it's a question from S. Hunt saying, I read an article recently by Felix Paddle, who has identified links between aluminium smelting and dam building. He suggested that this might be the case with Özkahraman Dam. So does anyone know whether this might be, sorry, I lost it.
Would you like me to ask to follow up a little bit on that, actually?
The case.
Yeah, the other question around, the point around aluminium is it's the use is for military purposes, so it's very heavy, aluminium that's smelted, it tends to be used quite heavily for the aviation and for military hardware.
Right.
So also I'm kind of thinking about the links between sort of old style colonialism and extractivism, and I suppose thinking about what that power is being used for, because it's not being used to benefit people in the region in terms of domestic use. Very often that power is for well, military purposes are a very large consumer of power, but also I was quite interested in the links that have been found between some of the aluminium, some of the dams that have been created and the use of aluminium smelting, which is very greedy for energy. The writer of that article didn't know whether that was the case, but he wondered whether that was the case there, and I was just wondering as well. Actually, there is quite a lot of aluminium smelting going on in central Turkey, as far as I can see, but obviously it's all national energy power as well, isn't it? So I thought that was quite just another, I suppose I'm really asking about the uses of the power as well. This is just another take on this.
Right, thank you. Ercan or Cemal, who wants to answer that question?
I can do it.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, as far as I know, in Turkey, there's not a big aluminium industry smelting. It is to them, the energy, electricity, it goes to the national political, geostrategic ones are more dominating.
Thank you, Ercan.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have a number of other questions written in the chat, and one by Ilka is, could panelists tell a bit about the recent, if any, reactions and international statements from EU countries, also from KRG Baghdad, and whether they have officially reacted. This is to sort of generally the Turkish policy of keeping the water and reducing the flow of water, I guess. And there's another question, let me read that. Were there similar problems of destruction historical sites, and this is from Sylvia, also in other dams? I ask about Euphrates River too. I know there is a lack of water for dams in Syria now, so I suppose great dams also for this river. So what's the situation with Euphrates River, basically? And let me ask the third one. This is from Oaisi Chia. Submerging Hasankeyf in water also means the destruction of evidences for the Kurdish ownership of Hasankeyf and all of Kurdistan for 12,000 years, and thus the existential erasure of Kurdish population. To what extent can we compare this crime of the Turkish state with the politics of the, sorry, let me enlarge this. So where was I? So to what extent can we compare this crime of the Turkish state with the politics of the Turkish ancestry when they said after the Ararat resistance that imaginary Kurdistan is cemented in Ararat? Two, are you aware of any similar examples of colonizers in the past to destroy existential sites of colonized people in the Middle East, Africa, or somewhere else? And three, to what extent can the current politics of Kurdish parties and civil society organizations in Turkey and Kurdistan respond to this destructive and colonial rule of Turkish state? And I think Steve has joined us as well now. Anyone who wants to answer that can go ahead. Any of the questions so far?
Cemal, you want to take one or two? And please.
Yeah, can I also remind you, if you want to ask a question in person, you can also do so. You don't have to just write. Okay, go on, Cemal.
Iraqi government in relation to Sudan, one, I think. Let me answer this. Again, I would like to explain in framework of securitization. Iraqi government and Iraqi in fact a bit scared, let's say, to kind of disturb Turkey, because they try to get on and make sure water runs smoothly. But the problem arises when Turkey asks more, such as military intervention in Iraq and any Kurdish possible independence and similar to this, that Turkey is always threat with water. So basically, one of the reasons that the Ilisu Dam has been created is actually for this purpose. Ilisu could have reduced a little bit more, and then they could have saved Hasankeyf, but then they wouldn't be very effective in terms of that. So in relation to water issue with Iraq and Turkey, it's kind of very uncertain, and Turkey uses it as a weapon. So that's what I see. So the lack of water in Syria, second question. Well, this is very kind of in practice we see now. I mean, Turkey is using water, holding water, and suddenly release water and try to threat the region of Rojava. So that's another fact that we see how water can be used as a weapon. So these two things I think are crucial to explain it. The other one, the following one, I will leave to Ercan.
Yeah, Ercan, if you want to respond to any, and then we'll ask Steve something.
Okay, at first about the reactions of the EU countries. Between 2006 and 10, the EU did statements in the progress reports on Turkey, where they also expressed concerns about the Ilisu Dam and Hasankeyf. But for many years, they don't do it anymore. There was never a government from Europe which said that the Ilisu Dam should be stopped or so in the last years. And when we stopped the finance from Europe in 2009, this was a result of pressure and campaign. They had to do it. And statements were done on a middle scale level. There were many letters and signatures to European governments and so on, but from Europe, more civil society was critical and never the governments. And the KRG, the Kurdish government in South Kurdistan, they, as far as I know, they never did official statement against the Ilisu Dam. This is what I know. The Iraqi government did several statements, but it was the first one 2006, I guess, very past maybe also. But in the last 3 years, they say, yes, we did agreements with Turkey, and they ensured that we will get water, enough water, and we will have our rights, and now the problems with Turkey are solved. But this is, of course, very naive, because today they have good relations, but next year it can change in the Middle East, and then Turkey can cut the water to Iraq. What they do then? Turkey has not signed the UN Convention on the use of non-navigable transboundary water resources. This is the main important UN convention, and they just can cut the water or release water when they want, and nobody can does something on international level against it. This is what I can say on these issues. Yes, in the past, several other important historical archaeological sites within the Turkish state have been flooded. At the Euphrates River, it was Zeugma, and when the Birecik Dam has been flooded, filled in 2000. Zeugma is a 2000-year important site. And the Atatürk Dam, which is the biggest one on the Euphrates, has flooded other sites like Samsat, Nevala Chori. These are other important places, 6, 7, 8,000 years old. There's another one on a tributary to the Tigris. It's called Hallanchemi, almost old like Hasankeyf, one of the oldest villages which has been flooded. Another to mention is Alianoy, close to Izmir in the west of Turkey, which has been flooded by a middle-scale dam. Alianoy is also Roman baths, and there were also campaigns to stop it, and we have worked with the campaign together not to flood this site. It was a small dam for irrigation, that's all, but this site was so magnificent, but they flooded it. So the Turkish state is extremely repressive. It is possible to stop from time to time some dams, but for this you need big campaigns and big protests. Anyway, there are other questions, submerging on the Kurdish, So one thing is important, in Hasankeyf we have not only the culture of the Kurds, of course, of Kurds, but Hasankeyf was in the past always ethnically, religiously a mixed site. Today, half of the population of Hasankeyf is Arabic. All the villages which are now flooded are Kurdish, but his town itself is half Arabic. In the past, centuries ago, there was often a majority of Assyrians in Hasankeyf. So until the last century, there were living Assyrians here. In the Middle Age, there were two Turkish states, at least the elites were Turks. So they also used Hasankeyf as their capital. And Hasankeyf is a quite mixed place. Of course, today for the Kurds, it's important because the struggle against Ilisu Dam made Hasankeyf to a symbol of recovering their own history in Kurdistan. In this sense, Hasankeyf has an importance. It became more important in the last 20 years. 30 years, it had not this significance for the people of North Kurdistan. This is also what I would like to mention. Yes, if Steve is here, he can come.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Steve, there's a question about, thank you, Ercan. Maybe you could offer some insights. Are there any cases similar to Hasankeyf where colonizers have destroyed the existential sites of colonized people? And anywhere you know, maybe you could give the example of in Ireland, whether the British have done something similar or not.
I'm not entirely sure of anything on the extent of Hasankeyf, and I mean, in Ireland, of course, there were the colonizers destroyed many cultural sites of cultural significance, but not on the scale, not a whole city in a way that they've or town that they've done in the way of Hasankeyf. But of course, this is the colonizers' stock in trade. You only have to look at what's happened, in the United States and in Australia. These huge countries that have been overtaken by colonizers destroyed the entire culture of the populations there. I did want to pick on one aspect, I think, which was the question that was mentioned in terms of the international response, and I think somebody mentioned the European Union, because I think in these kind of scenarios, just to draw things back into very simple terms, because I'm very simple, but I think that situations like this always require, I mean, it's a political problem. What's happening to Hasankeyf is deeply political and ideological. So the solution always has to be a political one as well. There is no kind of, people have to pursue a legal route. That's part of as part of a campaign, but there has to be a political outcome. I'm kind of always, the European Union, for example, I think as Ercan says, it kind of used to make statements, and it was condemning what was happening in Hasankeyf. It never did anything. It came out as it does with many other cases. It says a lot. It's there's a lot of hot air, and things end up being discussed and debated and dying in committees, but it never actually amounts to anything, and it never really does anything. But I think the reason that this happens is because these the European Union, United Nations, etc., are these are institutions of imperialism, of state power. They were designed specifically to entrench the capitalist system. That's why they exist, and I guess that's why some way behind the reason that Hasankeyf didn't get UNESCO World Heritage status. I think it was probably an incredibly political decision. And of course, the EU has an incredibly toxic relationship with Turkey, underlined by the shameful refugee deal, and to keep people out of the shores of the European Union. It's created its very own Donald Trump wall. And of course, it's we have to remember that Turkey has NATO's second largest army, and as long as Turkey as long as Turkey acts as it is at the moment, is acting as NATO's battering ram in the region, in Syria, it's desperately trying to foment regime change there, in Iraq as well, and in Libya, 3 countries that are currently being subjected to the destruction thanks to Turkey. So I think that that's something that we really have to consider. And this falls back then to a political question, which has to have a political answer, and that is, I think, for specifically, I speak as somebody obviously from Britain, Ireland, and we have to build forces here that support those that are fighting for freedom and democracy in Turkey. The only organisation, the only organised force really that's supporting Hasankeyf and could overturn the decision to flood Hasankeyf is the People's Democratic Party. And of course, they're coming under tremendous pressure at the moment. Like I said in my opening, 15,000 arrests of people have been detained since 2015. So, whether it's this is offbeat for what we're talking about, but I think if we want to have a solution, then there has to be a political one.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have some other questions. We have Nazi who wants to ask a question. Can we unmute her, please?
Yeah, thank you. I was about to ask a question to Ercan Ayboga, but I think he replied like 10 minutes ago, because I also wondering like what needs to be responsibility of the world for Hasankeyf and what they did for Hasankeyf so far. But he already replied. But I have one more question. If I am wrong, please correct me, Ercan. You said just many years ago that the European Union was financing the organization, your organization, but they stopped. And what was the reason behind? I wonder. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ercan, can I read another question and then you can go ahead? This is a question from Suna. Unless Suna wants to ask herself, I can read. It's up to Suna. Do you want me to read or do you want to ask yourself?
Please read.
Okay. We know that most of the dam projects are part of the colonialist politics against the indigenous people or the neighbored countries around the world. my question is there any way you get together with other people around the world who also lost their cultural heritages, lands, etc., due to similar dam projects? This is a question that relates to the sort of the point you ended, Ercan, the possibility of a larger campaign with similar organizations, and what can we do as, and Steve also mentioned in his talk, how, you know, forms of solidarity can empower people back in Kurdistan, and whether it's possible or what needs to be done. Okay. Ercan.
First to Naz's question. The European Union, the governments of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, they gave how you say, credit guarantee to the Ilisu Dam. It was 2007, 2009. We were able to cancel this export credit guarantee, which is an important instrument for international investments. This is exceptional. There's only this case where has been taken back. We could show that Turkey is not fulfilling all the criteria which the European government, the three ones, wrote down in the contract. So they wrote 153 points, and we were looking to each of them and reporting, including international experts, etc., and saying, look, here it's not done, and here are the pictures and the report, and we were able to get support even from the mainstream press of these three European states. So we could manage it with this support also of several NGOs. That's why we could stop it. It was 2009. But since then, the world changed a lot. Today, it would be much more difficult today. Anyway, so about the other question, yes, dams are worldwide also used to displace people, to destroy the heritage of indigenous oppressed people. That's true. But there's one difference that with the Turkish state. The Turkish state does it also officially. So the 11 dams, which Cemal has mentioned at the border to Iraq, they are officially called security dams, and it's official reasons to do it. We have, since 2006, we tried to establish, actually we had the relation to some European NGOs, but we were always trying to get solidarity with movements all around the world, also from the global south. And indeed, there were some gatherings where we came together with them. In the last years, several calls by us, initiated by us, have been also signed by Latin American, Asian, or African organizations and social movements, not hundreds, but some dozens. So we could create some, let's say, interaction. In Europe, there were people have joined the International Action Days, which I mentioned. International Action Days have been also joined by groups in Iraq, Syria, and Iran. There were also actions for Hasankeyf. For us, this region is also very important. So with our limited capacities, we try to do it. We want to do more. And Ilisu Dam and Hasankeyf, if you look to Kurdistan and investment projects, is the most known one. There are others, but they are not so known, I mean the singular ones, which are controversial. So, but nevertheless, we don't give up. And in Kurdistan, we have politically the capacity to have a political situation soon, hopefully, where we can discuss the, how to say, what to do with the Ilisu Dam and the other destructive dams. I don't want to say all dams, but the ones which we don't want. And removal of the dam is one of the options. decommission it or so is another option to change. Yes, things like this. We are really want to initiate this to be offensive, not only to react, only stop destructive projects, also to think what we can do to get back the landscapes for the people and the nature. So because we live today in the big cities and always more, and the large regions are depopulated, and this is the capitalist modernity has turned us in a situation where the life is in no way healthy anymore.
There's another question related about the networks of solidarity with Latin America. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yes, in Latin America, we are with several groups, we are in exchange. Just recently, a network on an alternative energy model has been created and we have joined it. It was initiated by Brazilian, Colombian, and Panama groups from Panama and others from other countries. So we have this contact, and the solidarity in Latin America concerning the Kurds and Kurdistan and issues, ecological issues around Kurdistan is not bad. The issue is also, critical question is that we can progress and come up with ideas, and the political scene in Latin America is diverse enough and rich enough that certain serious solidarity can come up. Solidarity work which also offers new proposals, new ideas, and to get out of the situation we have with which we are not so happy. Are there more questions?
There is one more question, I think. Yeah, Nazi has already asked her question. There is a question from Said Kaskin. He asked, as far as I know, it is more than 20 years that the campaign to stop Il-Su Dam has been continued and finally has not stopped Turkish state to destroy Hasankeyf and build the Il-Su Dam. My question is why the world is so silent towards all these Kurdistani ancient civilization heritage destruction. Even ancient Su neighborhood of Ahmed city was in the UNESCO list, but destroyed by Turkish state. And no any reaction by UNESCO. So what are the reason behind this silence? How can these issues be related to wider Kurdish question in the region? I'm not sure, Steve want to answer that, or Cemal?
Anyone who wants to answer it?
But I mean, I'm not going to dwell on this one for very much longer, for too long, sorry, I don't think, because the answer, I think, was pretty much what I outlined in my previous contribution, that the world is ignoring what's happening, and the world remains silent about the attacks on Kurdish heritage, or because it's in the same way that it ignores what's happening now. That's it doesn't care about the past, and it certainly doesn't care about Kurds in the future. And I'm not saying, when I say the world, I mean, of course, the institutions. And the reason that it didn't get UNESCO World Heritage status is the same reason that none of the world organizations are speaking out against Turkey's war in Syria, where it's committing genocide, a genocide operation against Kurds. This is because it suits them and it suits their imperialist aim. So there are deeply political reasons for it, and it's because the world imperialist powers support Turkey. and they support Erdogan's rule of Turkey. That's it in a nutshell. I mean, there's not really much more I can add to other than that.
Thank you. I think Cemal wants to add something. Yes, please. Oh, you need to unmute.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I think the answer is very simple to Said's question. The thing is, one of the reasons, obviously, is the whole world silent because they are the part of the game. They have divided Kurdistan. So what are you gonna say? I mean, you're gonna say, don't do that. And they will say, well, I mean, it's just very simple. It's about Kurd and Kurdistan. It's about the land of Kurdistan. It's about the Kurdish resources in the Kurdistan region and used against the Kurds. So if anyone say don't do it, then Turkey probably remind them the First World War and the Lausanne agreement. So that's what we should know, I think.
Right. Thank you very much. Oh yes, Ercan, please. Yes.
To the question of Said Keskin, I would like to add one point. Of course, in North Kurdistan, we did a lot to campaign to stop the Ilisu Dam, and from time to time the campaign was quite very strong. And not always the campaign was strong, and sometimes we were weak. The biggest weakness of us was that we didn't organize enough the affected people. Of course, many affected people joined our initiative. There are many of them. From time to time, with some thousands, we did also actions, but there are too many thousands have not joined actively our campaign, or better to say, they were not active enough by their own. So, you know, the campaign against Ilisu Dam started by people from the cities around Hasankeyf and in Batman and Diyarbakir. It's not typical only for Kurdistan, all around the world. It's often like this, that first people from the nearest cities start with such issues. But the issue is that the mainly affected people get strongly involved and fight for their rights. This happened from time to time and not at enough level. So I think this was an issue which we discussed a lot in Kurdistan. Some people had a focus on it and some not. And this is also one reason among the many why this dam has been built. It's strategic, the political repression and money and so on. There are the other reasons, but this is also something which, a reason which comes from our society.
Thank you, Ercan. I think our member Azad has another question. Azad, would you like to ask it?
Hello. Actually, it's not a question, a comment, because I'm researching and I researched on this subject. I don't agree with many research or people who claim that the site is Assyrian. And I think this is not depending on any archaeological research, but it is a hypothesis used by colonials and Orientalists. Assyria was an empire, and Hasankeyf was part of this empire in certain period of time. As it was part of the Ottoman Empire, no Assyrians were there 100 years ago or 200 years, even 1,000 years ago, because Assyria was defunct in 612 BC. And people speak in that region in Kurdish or Arabic, but the hypothesis is built by Orientalists and without any archaeological research. Fortunately, the current scientific excavation and archaeological work show that this area was inhabited by Hurrians and Mitannis, who are Indo-Europeans, as it is the case in Urkesh, which is close to Amuda and Rojava, which is also close to Hasankeyf. So I'm not in agreement, and I think it was part of many empires who conquered the area, but the people inhabited there, as it is the case in Hawler. Many people were telling me, look, This is Assyrian. Its name is Arbil, Arbaello, okay? But the inhabitant is calling it, Hawler. Hawler is the name of the city. All the Hawleri people saying Hawler. Nobody's saying Arbil inside Hawler, by the way. Only people from outside, only the Iraqi government, only Orientalists tried to impose these imperial names on Kurdish cities, and they are describing the Kurds as they are aliens, or they are not in their cities and villages and towns. This is our homeland. Yes, there are other peoples, they have the same rights to us, but this is not fair to say it's purely Assyrian. Assyria was an empire. Assyria was also on the coast of Syria, and it was in some parts of Persia. It was an empire. And the Ottoman Empire was also an empire, and the Turkish Empire now is empire. The Iraqi Empire, the state is empire. Syria is the same. All these colonized by colonizing the Kurdish. That doesn't mean that the inhabitants of Hasankeyf are Turks. Or, yeah, I'm not saying it from racist, but I'm saying it as the way some people try to portray the region as it's without identity, as the Kurds came from the space. It's just kind of denying the Kurds their national rights. Why the Kurds struggling if this is not their land? Yeah, this is my point, sorry. There are other points. I can also go back to the European Union, the European Parliament statement or the code, which is saying, describing this project, I'm quoting it, and its report of 2014. Describing it as it will have it. I am quoting that the EU Parliament statement in its report 2014, but it was as a resolution of 2015. I haven't it now. I can post it to you. It will have devastating social, environmental, and political effect. And it added, I will quote, "This particular region is mainly inhabited by Kurds, and that the construction will have severe effect on the Kurdish population and culture." Yeah, so the European Union rejected the Turkish plan, but the Turkish authorities continued to build this dam regardless of the international objections, including the environmental and the human rights objections and the institutions related to European Union. And this is part of the GAP project, which is Kemalist project. And this project was before the PKK armed rebellion. It was in the 70s. And it started since then. And this project is, the major aim of this project is displacing the Kurds and destroying their culture and I agree with Ercan that it's about also weaponizing water in terms of Syria and Iraq. The damage is severe, and I think there is need for other campaign to help. They are doing the same in Afrin. Afrin, there are no dams. They are destroying historical sites, plundering them.
Azad, sorry, we're running out of time. I think we should give a chance to them to answer the question. And this is to Ercan, I suppose, right?
No, it's not a question, it's my comment. I'm in this belief that they are doing the same in Afrin now. Afrin is—
Yeah, no, about the Assyrians, and Ercan mentioned that it's a site which is historically been, home to many different cultures. He didn't say it was specifically Assyrian. So I thought it was relating to that, but anyway. Does anybody want to respond to any of the comments, any parts of the comment? Or I have one question if no one has anything else to say. This is maybe Cemal and maybe Ercan. It's about the political economy of the dam construction. And in Turkey, as you know, many of the public projects are given to companies which are sort of linked to the government and Erdogan personally. I wonder if the projects that the companies that have built the dam and are involved in other big projects are, who are they? Are they part of the government, or is there, in addition to the points you made that this is about destruction of Kurdish culture and all that, I agree, but is there also an additional benefit that is the government or people close to the government gets?
Cemal, you can start if you want to say anything. Otherwise, we cannot hear him.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear now.
About political economy, well, the whole GAP project can be explained in framework of political economy. There's two things I would like to mention. One is European Union relation with Turkey and the DAM project. Although a lot of companies have stopped financing illicit DAM project because of protest and historical heritage, but the EU has financed GAP project under the guise of social development project. So the money was coming there, also was going there as well. So that's one thing should be clear. And in terms of who is building the dams, companies close to Erdogan, yes, there are. I think one calls Cengiz or something, and I haven't got front of me, but at the Akbank, and they have financed. So there is a kind of business going on as well, obviously. So as you know, Turkey last few years or like a decade, making money through building houses or bridges and dams. So there is a kind of money involved in that sense. I want to just indicate that.
Yeah, Ercan.
I cannot, there's not much to add. One thing is, indeed, there's, especially after 2002, there's a group of companies. Cemal mentioned one, Cengiz, there's Nurol or Limak and others, which have become very large in the last years. And the construction part of the economy is the one which was and is essential and brought a lot of money also to the government. And the government used this money to develop its power. Anyway, the reason, I said one reason is, there are a lot of reasons, but I would like to add one thing is the corruption. Through the construction of such projects, these monies, public monies, goes to the companies and they give some money back to the AKP and they use it for their power construction in the state. Corruption was always also one reason. And another issue is dams are easy tools to have water and electricity on a big scale and a big amount. And this is a way which many states like, because it's centralized control of water and electricity, like other big power plants, and dams are one of it. So that's why it's used in this way. And Turkey has also says, at least, that they have not oil and gas and not so much coal, and that's why they have to use their hydro potential for own energy resources. That's one big argumentation. Indeed, the hydro energy is an important part of the power capacity. It's around 30% or so. It's an important tool for the Turkish government, as said, to have the control of water and electricity in economical terms, apart from the reasons which we have discussed together. And last point, this state apparatus, government, they don't know any other alternative ways for, let's say, more social or ecological or democratic development of the society. They don't know, they are not interested, they are very repressive, authoritarian, corrupt, and they do not even discuss all these issues.
Thank you. I think, can we extend the session by 10 more minutes? There's 2 more questions. But before I ask them, I want to ask Steve if he wants to add something to the discussion on this topic. And on this, the one we discussed. You okay, yeah? Okay. There are 2 questions. Well, firstly, Azad's comment seems to be quite popular with the participants. And there are 2 questions, one from Mairi, I guess it's for Ercan. Since dams do not last more than some decades, can Hasankeyf ever be returned to some of its origins? Can we, in a way, recreate Hasankeyf? And there's a question from Aynur Ünal. And it's again to Ercan. You already mentioned that there has been some contact with many social movement NGOs throughout the world. Aynur is wondering if they had if Mesopotamia Ecological Group has been in contact with NGOs that provide services for indigenous people, like IWGIA, Survival International, or Cultural Survivor. Also the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, that its 2018 theme, Indigenous Peoples' Collective Rights to Land, Territories and Resources. Thank you.
Shall I answer? Yes, the first question, yes. The Ilisu Dam will operate economically 50 years or so, something like this. Some people say 40, some 70. The government doesn't say much about it. Some other countries of the world, dams can operate economically 200 years, but in our region in Kurdistan, it's around 50 years. So what to do then with the dam? There's no question. They build it and they don't know what to do then, and just continue to operate, and the public will cover the costs, and it will stay there as it is. The government, this is the government plan. They do not care about the future. In the next decades, more and more dams like this will come up in Turkey. So yes, what if you remove this dam, or let's say de-water the Ilisu Dam reservoir, which is 136 kilometers long, and it has a size of 313 square kilometers. It's a huge area. And in terms of biology, the nature will recover quite fast. So you can be sure that in a few years, you will not understand that there was a dam reservoir. It goes so fast with the recovering by the nature. And the fish and all the other species, they will benefit again after a few years. The people's return to this territory will take more, because you need land for agriculture, and gardens, and so on, build new settlements. This is also a process, but this is worthwhile, and this can be done according to a plan and investments, and this is an important territory, and there will be the interests, especially by the ones who have been displaced, respectively by their children. In terms of Hasankeyf, the cultural heritage, we will never have the same Hasankeyf back we had a few years ago, but we can restore some of the cultural heritage. We can save some of them, a part at least. I don't know how much, I cannot give figures, maybe 70, 80%. Maybe we can relocate the 7 monuments which have been brought to New Hasankeyf back to Hasankeyf. This is also possible. It's not so extremely expensive. This is also possible. So the dam, the wall built around the castle, maybe you can also decommission, remove it also, at least for a big part. So this will be something which will take several decades, I'm sure for it, but it's possible and it's important to do it, I think. And why not? So that's why we discuss, we have brought this issue. Some friends are emphasizing this issue more and more. It's not yet a campaign. It will take some time to prepare it. Maybe next year we'll be ready to start with such a campaign. It will be exceptional, but it will be something which will be very interesting. And there are only some issues. There are some dams in this world which have been completed and have not been operated, or have been completed, operated, and then again taken away from operation. They have been not so large like Ilisu, but there are cases, there are some nuclear plants in this world which have been built but not operated. So everything is possible. So about the second question, sorry, the other one, I don't know this IVGIA. We have some contacts with some indigenous people in Latin America, in different countries, which struggle against dams or for water. Several movements, but we don't know this one. I have heard about the UN Permanent Forum on indigenous issues, but we never have dealt with this body. We have dealt with some other 2, 3 other UN bodies. One was UNESCO, and another one is the UNESCO United Nations Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. We have brought the issue of Ilisu and Hasankeyf twice to there, and they have criticized it, Turkish government for it. And the international organizations to where we have brought this issue, they criticize the Turkish government, but nothing happens in the reality.
Thank you very much, Ercan. Do we have any more questions? Well, if we don't have any more questions, we can end the seminar tonight.
I have
yeah, there's Hatice Hajire Yavuz. Go on.
Yes. No, yeah, my question was like, since the transformation has been done now, is there anything that the national community in Turkey can do to help the people that have been affected by this, this wrongdoing? Because, I mean, the campaigns that were started then, are they transformed into other different campaigns that help the villagers or the people of Hasankeyf? Or, I mean, I just wonder what we can do now, I mean, since there's...
Thank you. Any other questions? Final call. All right. If we could answer that question and have your final thoughts and comments, please, the speakers. And can we start with Cemal, maybe?
Yes, I think I'm back.
Yeah, okay.
The question about whether there's any organization to help people and villagers and other issues. Well, to my knowledge, I don't think so, because Turkey sees as an internal issue. and therefore I don't think so. There's such a kind of international actors on stage that help locals. I think Steve several times indicated that this is a political issue, and for me, it's always political as well as a strategic security issue for Turkey. Even, I mean, we have seen several seminars and protests and reaction to the Turkish state that is to stop the dams, and we all seems to maybe failed. But what I would like to say is that seems to me everyone kind of depressed a little bit about it. Ercan has said that Hasankeyf may not come back again, and because of the destruction, we may not have Hasankeyf back, but we will be able to tell us the story of Hasankeyf, what's happened to it in future, and how and why Hasankeyf has been buried under the water. So there will be a concrete story there that our future generation will talk about it. And that's itself, I think, is significant. It's true, dams are last 60, 70 years. That's what they say. But 70, 60 years, it doesn't go away just as it was. It destroys the whole nature and fill up with the stone and mud and other environmental issues. Yes, there will be a story to tell, but seems to me there will be also a story that no one out there helped people and all Hasankeyf. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, can we have your final words, please?
Can you hear me again now? I mean, at the risk of being the most boring person on the planet and repeating the same point consistently, I think, as Cemal said, again, there has to be a political solution to what's happening, and whether we can provide any kind of material support to people on the ground and the villagers and the people that have been displaced. Well, maybe we can. I'm not aware of any kind of organizations that are doing anything to support people on the ground materially, but if there is, then we can obviously build some kind of support for that. If we can't bring Hasankeyf back, we can stop future Hasankeyfs, and we can stop the cultural genocide that is currently being waged against the Kurds, not just in Turkey but also in Syria and Iraq. And the best way that we can do this, people often ask me here, what can we do to support Kurdish people, and the answer is very simply we can't rely on the imperialist institutions to step in and help. We can't rely on the European Union, the United Nations. We can't rely on NATO, because these are all the forces that are propping up Erdogan, that are propping up the political power in Turkey, that is carrying out the decisions to flood places like Hasankeyf. These are not progressive forces. If they wanted to, they could step in and solve it quite easily. They choose not to, because it serves their interest to have Erdogan in power. So that means that we build our own independent forces, and we build and strengthen solidarity with those fighting for freedom and democracy inside Turkey, those fighting for freedom and democracy in Rojava, those that are fighting for freedom and democracy in Iraq as well, which are all places that are under attack from the Turkish state. And in this country, I always say, look, what we need to do is stop normalizing relations with Turkey. Erdogan is able to get away with all of these things because because he's been given the green light by governments like the British government. But the way to hit him is obviously reputationally, but stop doing things like selling him arms. Stop the arms trade to Turkey. That's quite an obvious point. Look at trade deals. Look at there's people in. I know that there are some Kurdish organisations that are calling for sanctions on Turkey. I'm in two minds on that, but certainly trade needs to be trade deals. Britain has £8 billion worth of bilateral trade deals or something around that with Turkey, so it needs to look at those as well. But and again, this comes to building support for why the forces of democracy are coming under attack internally. I always say that HDP, the People's Democratic Party, is absolutely the key to stopping Erdogan's wars in the Kurdish regions, in Syria, in Iraq, but also it's they're key to stopping future Hasankeyfs as well. So I would urge people to support the HDP. If you're in Britain, get your trade union to pass motions of support. This is like it needs a collective response and collective organisation. Get your Labour Party, CLP, or all of these organisations to sit up and start taking notice of what's happening to places such as Hasankeyf. That's how we can stop them, and that's what we can do here.
Thank you very much. I think supporting HDP, all the participants will agree with that. And Ercan, finally.
Yes. So there was a question what we can do for the people. I mean, supporting the displaced people to get at least a certain amount of expropriation could be something very concrete. We did statements on it. We followed this issue a little up among the the 75,000 affected people. There are 15,000 people who didn't get any compensation because they are landless people, have worked for big landowners. They are the ones who have lost the most. This is something very concrete. We would like to work a little more on this issue in the next months and years. Then you can follow up our website. You will see it. I wrote it just down, our initiative to keep Hasankeyf alive. Next year, we will organize a second Mesopotamia Water Forum in Ahmet, Diyarbakir. If you want to make some pressure on Turkey, you can look to the website Boycott Turkey, which I will send you now. There are options what a person can do. It's based in the UK. Yes, I mean, this is things which you can do in a very concrete way in the next time. Of course, informing, discussing, sharing is another issue which you can do. You have the contacts and issues of our movements. There are something always to look around and to see. And we are hopeful. And despite the destruction, Ilisu Dam is one of the many dams which are leading to destruction. Unfortunately, we couldn't stop the most projects. Some, yes, there are some dams which could be stopped in Kurdistan, but it's too few because there's hundreds planned or implemented. But so we must continue to struggle. In continuing, we will encourage other movements and groups. There are many other ongoing struggles in Kurdistan and Turkey against other dams. Fracking is a big issue, industrial agriculture, mining is a big threat to the forests and mountains. and so on. There are a lot of big struggles which will continue the next years and decades.
Thank you so much to Ercan, to Cemal, and to Steve for a very insightful and informative discussion. And thank you to all our participants, some of you are across the world somewhere. And thank you for taking time to join us and to support us. And now we can close. It's finished. Thank you.
Yeah.